Harrison Archer lived there with only his animals for company, and he'd called me in a panic because his goat wasn't eating. So here I was, bumping down the gravel drive, wondering what I was driving into. Coming over a slight incline, I could see well-maintained fences surrounding paddocks with a barn and cabin further on. I parked next to the closed gate, grabbed my bag, and slipped through the gap between the gate and the fence. The gravel crunched under my feet, and the sun beat down. It was a beautiful day. A dog barked sharply to announce my arrival, and he strutted out of the barn with a proper menagerie of animals. Harrison was tall, lean, all muscle and tanned, taut flesh. His dark eyes seemed impenetrable. Our vet nurse assured me that, despite the rumors, he was friendly enough. He had chosen to stay separate from the rest since his mate rejected him 10 years ago. I'd never come across anything like that before. It sounded like an urban legend, yet here he was, a real example. I was intrigued. He wore black jeans and a loose white t-shirt with dirt smudges, as if he'd already done a fair day's work. No smile.
Charlotte?
Yes, Harrison? He nodded and turned, taking long steps back into the barn, confident I would follow. It was like the start of a joke. A man, a dog, a vet, and 6. Or was it 7 chickens entered the room? It was cooler here, and in a small pen was a goat. An old gray goat that looked like it was simply in a mood.
Claude has refused to eat all day.
Harrison's voice was deep and husky. I ignored the way the sound rolled down to my stomach. I stepped forward and knelt on the hay next to Claude. "Hey, buddy, are you not feeling well?" I asked, trying to soothe him as I looked him over. "May I feel your body?" The goat just watched his owner. Claude winced as I picked up his leg. There. I pulled out my tweezers and extracted the splinter embedded deep. I showed it to Harrison and wiped the spot with an antibacterial wipe. Claude nuzzled my neck. Harrison frowned.
I should have thought of that.
I shrugged. It's always good to check it out when an animal isn't eating. I wiped the sheen of sweat beading on my forehead.
You're hot. Come and get some water.
Harrison said abruptly. I closed up my bag and followed him. The cabin had a porch with 1 chair, a small table, and a screen door. It was cozy. He opened the door and gestured for me to go through. I entered the cabin and heard a sharp, sing-song voice saying, "Fork you!" I turned around, trying to discern where it came from. There, a cockatoo, white with a proud yellow mane, was swaying side to side on the windowsill.
Joey, be nice.
Harrison warned, the screen door slapping closed behind him, the goat and dog sitting on the deck. "Be nice. Yes, ma'am," the bird repeated, and I had to stifle a laugh. "Hi, Joey. I've never met a cockatoo before." I held out a hand, which he put his black beak to and rubbed along it. "Fork you," he said, scooting back. This time I did laugh. Who taught him the potty mouth? Harrison was grabbing a glass of water from a filter jug he kept in the fridge. He turned and almost looked surprised that I was here.
His previous owner. I rescued him when they became too unwell to care for him. He's 40 years old.
I turned back to Joey with surprise. This often happened. People didn't know how long they would live, so they failed to make solid plans for their future. The bird retreated to a long cage along the wall beside a television. I looked around. It was rustic but neatly kept. Kitchenette, a worn wooden dining table for 2, a sofa facing the TV, and 2 doors off the side. Presumably the bedroom and bathroom. I jumped as a glass pushed its way into my vision. Harrison handed it to me silently. "Thank you." He was careful not to let our fingers touch as I took the glass. I took a sip and found I needed it all. It had been hot today and I'd hardly stopped. I watched him surreptitiously as he returned the jug to the fridge and grabbed a banana from the bench. His blonde hair was short, as if he had cut it himself. He was clean-shaven and had gentle lines around his forehead, mouth, and eyes. Proof of his 40 or so years out in the sun running a small farm.
You're taking over the vet practice?
He asked, leaning against the bench, long legs crossed at the ankles. He looked like he could pose for a hot farmer's calendar. "Yes, I moved here a couple of weeks ago to get used to it before Maddie cuts her hours." He nodded.
She's worked hard for years managing the practice, being a pack elder and raising 3 children.
He said with respect. I had heard that a lot. You run the farm here? I asked, finding I wanted to know more, to speak more.
I do, but that's not my main job. I work as a ranger for the forest.
With nothing else keeping me here, I handed him the glass back. His fingers brushed mine as he took it, and the spark caused him to pull his hand back suddenly. The glass dropped to the ground between us. A faint buzzing filled my head. My heart fluttered as if something momentous had just happened, and it took me a moment to figure it out. Bond, I whispered.